If you only knew the power of the dark side.
A lot of people say you can't get a mirror finish on an FDM print, but I'm about to prove that wrong. This is my 100% 3D Darth Vader helmet, built right here on my workbench using raw ABS filament. After 46 hours of printing and a brutal sanding and smoothing process, I've achieved a chrome and black shine that rivals any high-end replica. Today, I'm showing you the journey from plastic layers to Sith perfection. Let's get into it. The printer that I use is a Bambu H2S, along with ABS filament. During the print, the power cut out, and I ended up with a layer shift right in the middle of the helmet, below the eyes. Not ideal. Not only was this a good print, but it was a perfect recovery. Hey, welcome. Join me as we go from this to this. I see a rough draft that needs to be disciplined. If you want the presence of the Dark Lord, you can't have layer lines. We start with 80 grit. It's about power. We're leveled, we're flat, and we're erasing the memory of the 3D printer. Here you can easily see the difference between the two halves of the helmet. Now completed fully with 80 grit. Watch the surface change. Those deep canyons from the 80 grit, they're smoothing out. This is where the silhouette of the mask finally changes to look dangerous. This is the aha moment. Look at that difference from raw plastic to a surface ready for the Emperor himself. One step closer to the ultimate cosplay. The faceplate is much harder to sand than the dome because of the tight corners and detail. The dome was the easy part, but a Sith Lord isn't just a shiny forehead, it's the snarl. The faceplate has all the sharp angles and tight corners where 3D printers love to hide their flaws. The repetition is the price of admission. Trust the process because the finish on the other side is worth every second of the grind. But in cosplay, it's the only path to perfection. Right, well that's 2 hours of my life I won't get back. But you can see here that sanding process has come up really good. It's imperative that we get a really smooth, blemish-free surface. When that primer goes on, it'll look like glass. We really want to get that black to pop and really have that gloss. So we've got rid of the layer lines. Yeah, quite happy with that. That should come up really good. Now we're going to assemble the helmet, and then we'll prime it once it's assembled. There was a couple of ways I was looking at doing the attachment to the back of the neck of the helmet. I was looking at a 1-inch elastic band, so that way they can still have it there and stretch it around the neck. Well, the other option would be for this 2-inch Velcro, which I could quite easily glue into spot here, attach it to this part here, the back of the helmet, and then with the front of the Velcro, have it so they can detach it if I cut it with a pair of scissors, and then have this connecting the two on top, so then they can decide how tight they want it, and if they want to take it off completely,
and just take off my Velcro bits as opposed to them big. I'm in two minds whether I should go the 1 inch or the 2 inch and have it fully removable. So they're the two options, I guess.
Vader's presence is intimidating, but his helmet shouldn't be a struggle to put on. I'm installing these hidden elastic straps on the lower back. Most people reach for the super glue, but that's kind of a trap. It's too brittle for the stretch. We're using a high temp hot glue to create a flexible bond that can handle that tension. This is the difference between a display piece and a wearable piece.
Okay, so they've joined in well. Alright, I'm just going to use some normal glue. If I use the glue gun, it's a bit thicker. It could spill over the edges when I press down. But yeah, this will hold for now. And possibly some staples as well.
Glue is great for the surface, but for the sole of this mask, we need something stronger. I'm using a hot staple gun to bridge the two halves of the faceplate. These stainless steel staples melt directly into the ABS, creating a permanent internal skeleton.
So again, when using the welding gun, work out how far to go so you don't push through to the other side. And I'm not sure if you saw that when I went through I twisted it. That just helps locks it in better.
If you're after the strongest bond, place your staples in a zigzag or an X pattern across the seam.
Three other sides should be more than enough to hold this in. And when taking the staples out, when removing the staples, a lot of people, they've got a little pair of snips and they go right down and snip and off it comes. But they still leave a little small barb. So it had potential to scratch your face. So I found the easiest way is just move it forwards, backwards and forwards, or to the left and right. And it'll come off fairly easily. And it doesn't leave any sort of nub. So you won't scratch your face. Now I want to try something new. I haven't done this before. But I thought this through I would have done this further. Well, that's why we learn. Okay, so I've glued in the helmet assist, the adjustable. So that's in there. That's ready to go. So tomorrow I'll give that a prime, and we should be right. Okay, so now we're ready to prime. What I use is a paint primer. It's what I use for Automotive. Comes up great, awesome finish. The ratio I'm going to do is 2:1. So I'm going to go 100 ml of the primer and then 200 ml of the thinner. Make sure to give it a good mix. I'm also going to be using just a plain spray gun, The nozzle width is going to be 1.4mm. I find that to be a good application. Spreads easy. I also use the same ratio with my paint. If I needed to get more fine, I would go down, but because it was quite an easy, straightforward print, there's no need to. So just a nice 1.4 nozzle, it's more than enough.
Using a 1.4mm tip is the ideal setup for printing a high-end project like Vader helmet. It sits perfectly between the thin needles used for base coats and the massive nozzles used for thick industrial fillers. As you can see, the 1.4 atomizes the primer into a fine mist. This means less orange peel and significantly less sanding for you later. We've done the hard work with the sander. Now it's time for the 1.4 spray gun. Most people go too thick with primer, but a 1.4 tip gives me that factory smooth atomization. It lays down just enough material to fill that microscopic pores without drowning the details. We aren't just painting a mask, we're prepping for that mirror and less orange peel. Now that means less sanding later.
Okay, so now we've finished applying the primer. It's had time to cure. So the next process is to give it another sand. You want to get that really nice smooth glass finish. So I'm going to go down with two lots. I'm going to start with the 1500 down to a 2000. Still not that smooth. I'll probably use this 3000 grit. So let's see how we go, and then we'll do a final inspection for any imperfections or any minor fillings that might need doing that I come across while sanding. So I ended up going down to a 4000 grit sandpaper after the 1500 and 2000, and even then I can see right on the very front of the helmet, which we don't want, still little imperfections that the primer hasn't filled in or taken up to surface level. So for the sake of time, and on the back as well, I'm going to use some resin and cure it very quickly so I can move a lot quicker than having to wait more hours, where resin will cure pretty quickly. But yeah, I'm not happy with the finish for this helmet. That's going to show if I don't really give the attention that it deserves. And you can see here with some of the support filament that's taken a slight little hole in the helmet, so we're going to fill that up. I'm just going to use just a plain UV resin and cure it as we go.
Even after 320 grit sanding, the dark side hides some tiny secrets, pinholes and micro gaps that would ruin a high gloss finish. Instead of waiting hours for putty to dry, I'm using a UV resin. I drop it exactly where it's needed. I hit it with the UV light, and within a few minutes, it's part of the helmet. No shrinking, no waiting, just instant perfection. To blend these UV fixes, I start with the 800 grit to aggressively level the resin with the ABS. It may look a bit cloudy at first, but don't panic. we're finishing with an ultra fine 4000 grit. And don't forget, we're not just sanding anymore, it's polishing, getting ready for that paint. And we've already covered those other layers of grit previously.
So that now is perfectly smooth. Although it looks like it's got indentations, it's just the resin being see-through. Now, hindsight's a great thing. While I think of it, this is going to be a nightmare for me to paint, because just getting it to line up, it's going to touch, it's going to get in the way. So as much as it pains me, I'm going to get rid of the elastic for now. Probably put a new one down. Normally I haven't had this problem in the past, but I'll put another lot in here. Might even use Velcro yet, I don't know, we'll see. But that's going to be a problem if I don't address it now. When I come to paint, I'm going to be in a world of pain. This here's primed, come up pretty good. There is a faint line here where I ran out of filament during mid-print, or there was a power cut, I can't remember, one or the other. And it's right on the brow, the faint line there. Of all places, I suppose there's never a good place to run out of filament. But yeah, the reference not too bad. Let's give this a sand, and we'll see if there's any other bits of imperfection that we'll have to fill in with the Resin U.V, just here under there, underneath the tusk area. But apart from that, pretty good. You can see here some marks. So I'll put some more resin into that.
I'm using a 395 nanometer UV light for a reason. The specific wavelength is the key that unlocks the chemical bond in the resin. Anything weaker and it stays sticky.
Okay, the paint I'm going to use for the helm and the mask is an acrylic lacquer. It's a gloss black. It's a car paint. It's got a high gloss and it's good finished, fast drying, which is really good. And I'm going to mix that down with thinner as well. So I'm going to go 200 and 100, so 2 to 1 in this mixture. Normally I do 100, but being obviously 2 parts, you got a helmet and a face. It's going to be 100 ml of paint each. I find this a lot more cost effective, and you get a lot more paint for value, and it spreads out better. It's just coming to the end of the day. I'm really doubting whether I should do it, but I can always put a second coat on tomorrow if I'm not happy with the turnout. So alright, let's get started. The air gun I'm going to use, just the same one that I used with the primer, but I'm going to use a 1.4 nozzle to apply the paint. That's worked fine for me in the past. You can go a bit finer, but there's no need to. It always pays to use a filter, which I've got in the front here, to grab any contaminations that may be in the paint, dirt. If I forgot to clean out my gun properly before, it'll catch it before it goes onto the helmet. And I've got a pressure monitor here, which I'm going to use to apply between 25 and 30 psi, and it also has like a reservoir here that catches any moisture in the pipe from the compressor, because quite often you will get moisture build up and you don't want that water coming in and mixing with your paint, because when it goes onto the helmet it's not going to apply well and you will have runs instantly, and we don't want that. So there we go, we have 400 ml, 200 of paint, 200 of thinner.
This is the point of no return. With super gloss black, your technique has to be surgical. Notice how I start the spray before I hit the plastic and keep moving past the edge. If you start or stop on the helmet, you get a hot spot or a run that ruins days of sanding. But it's not just about the movement. I'm watching the wet edge, making sure each pass overlaps the last by at least 50%, so that paint flows together into a single seamless mirror. I'm also keeping the gun exactly 6 inches or so away. Too close and it runs. Too far and the paint dries in the air, giving us that dreaded orange peel. We're looking for that glass look. Really, there's no room for error. The first pass is a light tack coat. It gives the heavy gloss something to bite onto, so that final wet coat doesn't, slide right off the mask. We're laying down a single stage high gloss black, but this is just the foundation. I'm starting my sweep early and ending late to keep the finish perfectly level. The secret here is the depth. By using a high gloss black base before the super clear, I'm creating that black hole effect. That black provides the pigment and the clear will provide the lens. I've dialed my 1.4 gun to the perfect pressure as I showed before, so the paint automizes into a fine mist, not heavy droplets. I'm also watching my distance, as I said. Too far away, that paint dry sprays before it hits the surface, creating that bumpiness or little dimples. We're looking for that wet look where the paint melts together the second it touches the ABS. It's a fine line between a mirror and a sagging run. But that's the edge we have to do for the Dark Lord.
Okay, so now we've come to do the smaller, finer details. So these are a silver with a copper top, and these are silver as well with some black accents. So I'm going to use acrylic paints again. So this one's airbrush paint. I find they go on a lot easier and liberally with an applicant, as opposed to a paintbrush where you have those paint strokes. So nice to finish. Mix it in with some thinner. I do 1:1, and I apply it on an airbrush. So let's see how we go. Okay, and also I forgot to mention, use a bit of black for the front of the face of the helmet, where we're going to have the silver beside or behind it. So that'll be the front, that'll come in behind it. So moving on to the bronze now, we're going to apply this one by hand. And we're going to put it on the top here, so it looks like copper, part of Vader's wiring. Okay, so the mask has had time to cure, the paint's hardened enough. So I'm going to mask it now and get ready to apply the graphite powder for the two-tone. Okay, so this is all taped up, ready to apply the graphite powder. So that's all good. So here we go. This is the graphite powder that I use. And the applicator that I'm using is like a makeup sponge dab, or whatever you call them. So I use them to dab on and apply the graphite powder.
Before the graphite hits this surface, it has to be clean. Even a single fingerprint contains oils that will grab the powder and create the permanent smudge. I'm using a clean microfiber cloth to strip away the dust and oils without scratching that gloss. Why am I using a makeup sponge? Because it's high density and it's ultra soft. A cloth would just soak up the powder, but this sponge holds the graphite on the surface, letting me burnish it into the paint. It applies perfectly even, eliminating the streaks and ensuring every micron of the helmet gets that mirror finish.
As you can see, a little bit goes a long way.
For a pro tip, wear gloves. Once you wipe it with the microfiber, don't touch the helmet with your bare hands again until that graphite is sealed.
Alright, so we'll apply the graphite. Now we're going to fill in the accents, the bits and pieces. And then we'll get ready for clear coat before we work on the eyes. Okay, all of the other bits are now attached. So now I'm going to put together the clear sealer. Alright. Alright, so this is the clear acrylic lacquer that I'm going to apply. I'm going to thin it down, obviously with thinners. The ratio I'm going to do is 1:1, simply because Darth Vader, we really want that nice gloss. So yeah, that should be a really good, strong, reflective and a good durability. So let's get into it. I'm going to use 200 mils because again there's two parts, one dome and one for the mask. So I want to split that and get a good coverage. The application I'm going to use is still the same. I'm going to use the 1.4mm nozzle for my spray gun. And the pressure that we want to have when we use that is between 20 to 30 psi to get that nice, consistent, even flow.
Now the reason I've made this acrylic clear a 1:1 ratio with thinners is this makes the clear ultra thin almost like water. We're laying down a wet mirror coat that will make the graphite look like solid metal. The reason is it allows the paint to flow out instantly, erasing any last traces of texture. It's a high risk reward. It's thin enough to run off if I'm not careful, but it's the only way to get that deep dipped in glass look. Don't try to get the full gloss in one heavy hit. 2 or 3 medium wet passes, as I'm doing here, are much safer than one heavy soak.
Okay, so now we're coming to do the lenses for the Vader helmet. So I printed out a buck to form the lens over this. I'm going to use a heating, put this into there, vacuum seal it and down. So I've measured the required amount, and let's get this done.
To get that iconic look, I'm vacuum forming the lenses. I've printed a custom or a STL buck provided from Galactic Armory, which is the mold of the eye shape, and I'm using this vacuum heat machine to pull a sheet of PETG acrylic over it. The trick is the heat. We need the plastic soft enough to stretch but not so hot that it bubbles. Once it hits that sweet spot, we drop the frame, let the vacuum suck the air out, snapping that plastic perfectly to the shape of the buck.
Alright, I've rushed that. When I put the buck in, I put it up against the corner, wasn't in the middle. And ideally, I could have let that melt a lot more. As soon as I hit the heat, it contracted. So, not the best. Okay, so now we're going to go on to dyeing the lenses for Vader's mask. We're going to go for a bit of a red, as it portrays in the Empire Strikes Back. Now, doing that, I had a bit of a failure for some reason. Maybe it was too hot, it cooled too quickly, but it's gone a bit of white. It's not opaque, but it's a little bit cloudy. But having looked through the lenses, it's not too bad, so the viewer should be able to still look out through it, but you won't see it from the outside. So what we're going to do, we're going to dye it. I'm using some Rick dye more. There are different types of dye out there. To be honest, I haven't used this on the PETG, so this will be a first for me. This is more for synthetic fibers, polyester, nylons and acrylics. So let's see how we go with this. The idea is to heat this up to 85 degrees Celsius. So what's that? I'll let you know in Fahrenheit. And then we're going to shock it in some cool water. So we'll turn this on, get the temperature up. We'll monitor the temperature as it heats up. We obviously don't want to go too high because then that'll just melt the PETG. So I'm not sure if you see the temperature here. This is a multi induction. We don't want 120, we want to drop it down. This will heat up very quickly. So 31 degrees Celsius at the moment, which is 88 Fahrenheit. So we're going to increase that more. Water, which I've just taken out of the fridge, is 16 degrees. So as mentioned before, we don't want to have this touch the bottom and risk chance of melting. So if you have one of these little skewers with a clip on the end, I've got a little alligator clip which I normally use like miniatures to paint. Take the plastic nibs off. We want to make sure we've got a good grip on this, so then we can dye it, move it around, and then take it out, and then we're going to shock it. Always a good idea to put some gloves on when working with dye. I reckon I'll make enough mess with paint, let alone dye. The tricky bit, it doesn't actually give me, well, that I can see, right, that's no, it's not funny, the amount to use per litre of quarts or mils. So I'm going to add what I think is going to be a good amount of colour, and going from there by eye. Anything with red looks like black once it goes into a black pot, so we'll have a good guess. Half the fun, isn't it? Well, that answers that question. It takes the whole bottle, which is 207 mils. Maybe if I thought this through, it would be just plain dye and then add water accordingly. I've actually got some candle dye around here. I don't know if I've got red. It might be an idea to add a bit more. Goodness me. Normally you don't need a lot of dye with candles, very minute, but maybe I'm panicking a bit here. Liquid dye, this particular dye normally mixes with wax. It's designed for, oh, here we go. It's been 20 minutes playing with this. I think it's safe to say it's not going to work, and I may have possibly made it worse adding candle dye. I'll have to do a bit more research with this. There is another type of dye out there. I will try, but I think it's safe to say that the RIT dye that I've used does not work with PETG. not consistent enough anyway. Lesson learnt. Moving on. As you can see there, unfortunately, it's not ideal. Too blotchy, the ink or the dye hasn't spread, so there's quite a few imperfections there. So I'll go back to the drawing board, and when I've perfected it, I'll show you guys how to do it. Okay, so we've established now that the red dye is not going to work for us, so we're just going to push on with the normal dark lens. So we'll get out templates, which I've pre-done. And all obviously you got to do is have a piece of paper or whatever you're going to use for your template marking, put that up inside the mask, and around the eyes dry out, line out or draw out what you need, and then obviously go a little bit more so we can glue that in. So I've got one here which I've done before. So when cutting the lenses out, you can cut these out with scissors, but ideally something a bit more heavy grade. It'll reduce blunting and you get a nicer cut, so you're not really struggling with normal scissors. So these do me fine. So this is made out of welder's shield. That's the trend that's going now. There's a film on both sides, and it's already what do you call, tinted. So technically, if you wanted to, you could go and weld with a Darth Vader mask on and get away with it, protecting your eyes, because these are graded for a welding shield. And when cutting these out, use a soft fluffy towel underneath, just a bit more protection, because at the end this is what the viewer is going to be looking out of, so you want that to be a good experience. Alright, so let's attach these. So we're just going to use a regular hot glue gun to attach the lenses inside the mask. Now, because I printed this helmet with using a buck in mind as opposed to just cutting these out, so that means I don't have a slot which I can just slide these eyes into and then work away. I had this in mind of the protruding, the bulge of the eye, because we did that in the mold, trying to have the red dye, but that's not going to work today. So we'll still get away with putting this in as such. It just means we just got to push down and hang on to it a little bit longer than normal. Alright, so we've now attached the lenses, so we're going to do a final check and if needed, a polish on the helmet just to really bring that shine out, and we should be coming towards the end. But yeah, I'm happy with the lenses there, you can't see through. Happy days. So I have 3 types of polish here from Meguiar's. Well, I won't be, this is what they call a compound. So where if you have a prop and the paint has had orange peel and it's had a fail, you're not really happy, there's a few imperfections in there, a lot of blemishes, this is what you would use to dull it down, get rid of those imperfections and then bring it back up. So that's the compound, but in this case we're not going to be using that because the paint job is quite good, very good. So that's what you would use a compound for. and to restore and bring it back. Then we call it an ultra finish polish. So after you'd use the compound, you'd use the ultra finish. So that's got a slight cutting compound in there. It's a light one to bring that shine right back up, and to give it that reflective. But again, I won't need this on here because it has a slight cut. And I don't want to cut that paint at all. It doesn't need any attention to it. What I want to do is just bring that shine more and bring that prominent up. So well, I'm then going to go to the ultimate polish, and this here is what they call a clear coat safe as well. So when I clear coated it, I don't have to cut that back. I can go over the top with a clear coat to get that really enhanced gloss polish. So how it is now, I just want to push it a bit more and see if I can get that really reflective ultra shine to it. So let's see how we go. And then you have your black polish for your finishing grades, and so orange. So your black and your whites are more for your finishing polish. They're not designed to cut or do any harm to your finishing paint. So I'm going to go in with the white on this particular one. Always test sample. I don't want to go right in on these big ones. If something goes wrong, it won't take me long to quickly repaint or reprint that, or sand it back, repaint it. I've got a, and I've just attached it to a rotary where I can either go into a air compressor, or in this case I'm going to use a drill. Just easy, small, compact. Okay. You don't need a lot to start with. And also when you're polishing and applying the pad onto your surface, make sure you don't have those high revs generating a lot of heat, and most importantly, keep your buffing pad moving, because if you keep that on the same spot, it'll generate heat very quickly, and you run the risk, depending on how hard or soft or the quality of the paint is, it could strip that paint. So we don't want to do that. So let's have a look see here. So here you can see there is a slight difference. It's given that shine, that nice little polish. You can even feel it through my glove. Here your finger tends to grab a bit of resistance, but here it just slides right off. And we've got that really nice shine finish again. So we'll go to this side. I think I've got enough polish on that pad to keep pushing through.
I'm looking at the reflection, but it's just not there yet. The black is damp, and that deep liquid mirror I'm chasing, it's still missing. It looks good, but for a high quality end, it's not good enough. I need that flawless depth, and right now the surface is telling me I've still got work to do before it's truly Vader worthy.
Okay. This is the first for me in the regards to polish. Not making any difference at all. So when I say that, I mean in the finish. If anything, I may see a few little minute swirl marks from where I've put the polish on. So I'm going to try a different pad again, as opposed to where I haven't put polish on, because I believe the finish of the paint is better than the polish. Let me know your thoughts. Seriously, I'm a little bit surprised on that. I think the helmet has a darker finish without the polish, with that clear seal on it, as opposed to the finish that I've just put the polish onto the back collar. I think the black collar's throwing a little bit more of a swirl, which is taking away from that really gloss black finish. It was bothering me, so I got another wool pad out, another wool pad, polishing pad, and I got the black out. And the black has given me a totally different finish again to the white. Definitely a lot smoother. The swirl marks are gone 100%. So I'm back to probably I'm in two minds. But the finish is really super smooth, and longevity moving forward, it gives the paint more protection. So I'm going to go ahead and, maybe against my better judgment, I'm going to polish this helmet with the black foam pad and see how we go. You be the judge. Here we go. Woo-hoo-hoo. Is there a difference? I think there is now. It's amazing when you put the right finishing pad on. I was really doubting myself there for a moment. We'll keep pushing on.
Machine polisher does the work, but it leaves behind a hazy film of spent compound and oils. I'm wiping it down with a fresh microfiber to lift those residues away.
And it's definitely an improvement, and you can feel it. Super slippery, glassy. So that's half and half. I'm glad I decided to investigate further, because normally it's very rare that a finished paint job will outdo a polish. So the polish is now making it a lot better. The applicator still, and move the helmet around the polishing pad. Sometimes obviously you have to move accordingly, but I find you get more control if you're able to keep the pad still and move the helmet around the pad. Right, as we're coming towards the end of the build, we need to put in some padding. Well, we don't need to, but it's always nice to do so. It makes it a more pleasurable experience for the user if they wish to use it as cosplay as opposed to just decorating. We don't need to put a lot in here. So one for the dome. Okay, so that's Velcroed, so they can pull that off when they need to adjust or wash it. So I've just put some glue, hot glue into here. again. Put another dollop into here. Well, the circle is now complete, and that's how you build a quality 3D Darth Vader Sith helmet. So thank you for joining me on this hour's trip. We've covered everything from the filament, the printer, to sanding. Yes, I know sanding, you're tired of it by now, but as you can see, that's the most important part, is sanding. So then priming, and then the paint, applicating the paint. 1.4 I think you gathered was the real tip there for what we needed to get that quick spray. But yeah, huge thanks to all of you that stayed with me, and I hope you managed to get some value out of this. If you did, please feel free to like, and even better, subscribe. I will be building more helmets and different tutorials, so if you can get value out of it, great. It's a great hobby, I enjoy it. But yes, if this tutorial did help you, I look forward to you building your props and letting us see that as well. So thank you again for your time, and we'll see you on the next one.